Chapter 12.
In the apartment, the boxes of Draco's possessions sit neatly on the dining table. In the guest bedroom, there's still a half glass of water on the table, the bed unmade. Harry sits on the edge of the bed and removes the wand from his pocket. Hawthorn, 10 inches, unicorn hair core. He'd fetched it from Gringotts on Tuesday afternoon, when Draco had still been sleeping and Harry hadn't started worrying yet. The wand had sat forgotten for years. Harry had meant to return it to Draco after the war, planning to owl it off and spare the awkwardness of meeting in person, but he'd simply forgotten. Too busy with other things, and the wand had ended up packed away in his crates of possessions at Gringotts after he and Ginny purchased the apartment. He'd never bothered retrieving the crates and unpacking. It took him quite some time to find the wand, and he wished he'd at least organized the crates in some way, or labeled them. The wand was amongst a jumble of other things, stacks of old Quidditch weekly magazines that should have been thrown out long ago, one of the fake galleons Hermione made for Dumbledore's army, a broom compass, a Weasley jumper, Sirius's penknife, and Draco's wand. Harry had been surprised when he first disarmed Draco, seizing the wand and fleeing with it. He'd expected the wand to be resistant and somehow unfriendly, though he'd absolutely dreaded using Bellatrix's wand. But the wand had been no different than using, for example, Hermione's, and had proved itself an excellent wand in lieu of Harry's own. It makes Harry feel guilty again. Draco, judging by the letters written in the back of the calendar diary, had never forgotten his original wand and had agonized over the obstacle of asking for its return. But for Harry, the wand hadn't even deserved a second thought. He'd made vague plans to return it, but had been too busy with stupid things, smiling and busy with his friends, his life, and he'd thrown it into a box of other forgotten items and left it to gather dust in a Gringotts vault. "I'm sorry," Harry wants to say, but Draco can't hear him. He's not here. He lifts the wand. Tranquillo. Draco was right. The spell doesn't work when attempted to cast on self. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next afternoon, as Harry's halfway through revising the latest case, Ron strides into the office. Ron only ever strides for something important, Harry knows. The rest of the time, he ambles into the office, eyes roving around for bags of sweets. Ron never quite grew out of his lanky and meandering gait. "Malfoy's awake," Ron says without preamble. Harry looks up sharply. "When?" "He woke up last night around 9 o'clock. Went to sleep again, but they said it was a natural sleep this time. He woke up at around 6 this morning and stayed awake." "How'd you know?" Harry demands, pushing the case file aside and standing up. "Just dropped one of the junior Auror trainees off at St. Mungo's. He'd been practicing duels and accidentally replaced his own fingers with carrots. Thought I'd ask about Malfoy while I was there." You asked about Malfoy? Why?" "Thanks a lot," Ron says, looking exasperated. "I behave like a decent human being and you interrogate my motives. Real nice, that is." Harry's too distracted to feel apologetic. "Nobody told me." "Well, they notified his mother this morning." Ron gives a sympathetic shrug. "You're not family or even a friend. You're just the case manager." Harry frowns. "How do you get all this information from the healers?" "They don't tell me anything." "What can I say? Natural charm." Harry grabs his cloak from the peg. "I'm going." "Oh, really?" Ron says. "Holdsworth's going to be madder than a brooding dragon if you leave without a word. Suppose I'll just go and make some excuses, sort it all out for you then." "Thanks, Ron. You're the best," Harry says, ignoring Ron's sarcasm and stepping out the door. Ron's voice drifts after him. "You owe me, mate." Harry heads straight for the atrium. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Draco has gone. The witch at reception has to tell Harry 3 times. She must think he's especially slow, as he can only stare uncomprehendingly as she smiles patiently and repeats the words cheerfully. "Mr. Malfoy signed out at 11 o'clock this morning. May I help you with anything else?" 11 o'clock. 5 hours ago. Harry nods at last and slowly turns away from the witch. He returns to the office. Follows a lead on the Staffordshire witch, who was sighted near a hospital, and by the time he returns to his office again, it's 6:30 in the evening. He takes a long time to file paperwork, tidy his desk, fetch his cloak from the peg, even though they're on the cusp of summer and the weather really isn't warranting of extra layers. He knows the reason for his lingering. He's hoping Draco will be standing by the apartment door, but he knows it won't happen. And as long as he's not there yet, still standing in his office, he doesn't know. Draco might be there, or he might not. Schrodinger's Draco, Harry thinks with a very wry smile. He disapparates to the apartment, appearing in the foyer, and takes the stairs rather than the elevator. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, Level 4. Level 5. He steps into the corridor. The apartments are half-floor, and thus there are only 2 doors in the corridor. On the left side, Harry's apartment. On the right, his neighbor's. No visitors await at either door. He takes his key from his pocket. Every noise is amplified in the empty corridor, the faint jangle of the keys, the scrape of metal in the deadlock. The door swings open and he steps inside, noting the apartment is the same way he left it. The curtains are wide open, the setting sun casting the apartment in a gentle amber glow. He walks from room to empty room. The spare bedroom still has a glass of water on the bedside table, half empty. A faint scratching noise comes from the living area. Harry leaves the bedroom and hurries over to the glass sliding door leading to the balcony. An owl is scratching at the glass, looking displeased. Narcissa. His friends know not to owl him at home. The owls constantly arriving and departing would no doubt confuse or bother his muggle neighbors. Owl me at the office has always been his rule. And aside from his friends, Narcissa is the only one who knows his address. His guess is correct. He reads the letter briefly. Dear Harry, thank you for all your efforts in finding my son. I shall speak to your supervisor and suggest a commendation for your work. Best wishes. Narcissa Malfoy. He reads it again and again. It's nothing. A polite thank you, a polite goodbye. A commendation, like Harry did all this for a pat on the head and a compliment. He feels nauseous, but after the queasiness recedes he begins to feel angry. Angry that nobody's told him anything, angry that Narcissa so clearly considers him to be of such little personal importance. She hadn't even mentioned Draco, where he was or if he was all right. Even Astoria didn't bother to contact Harry. But why would she or Narcissa have bothered, after all? You're not family or even a friend, you're just the case manager. And, caught in a seething fog of anger, Harry throws a handful of flue powder into the fireplace. Astoria Venn's house. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Matthew greets Harry first. He's sitting in an overstuffed armchair by the fire, reading a newspaper, and he jumps sharply, cursing, when Harry steps out of the flames. Scared the living daylights out of me. I taught you to drive. Why'd you have to pop out of fireplaces, for heaven's sake? Sorry, Harry says unapologetically. Is Astoria about? Matthew frowns. She's just putting Sophie to bed. Listen, is this about her ex-husband? She's been very upset lately. Maybe you should talk about it tomorrow. No, I'm talking about it today, Harry says firmly, and Matthew looks at him. For a moment, Harry thinks he's about to tell Harry to leave, but then footsteps sound and a voice cuts through the tension. Harry. Astoria stands in the doorway, a shadowed look on her face. She's had a long day, Harry thinks, noticing the smudges of darkness beneath her eyes. I heard Draco's awake, Harry says, his voice still a little curt. I'm sorry I didn't send an all. Astoria looks away. Where is he? Astoria makes a sound that could be a laugh or a cry. You don't know? No. He went back to the manor. Astoria's quiet again for another moment. Merlin, it was awful. Narcissa and I had the biggest row. We wouldn't have argued, normally, but I suppose emotions were running high. I'd promised myself I'd be calm, but I couldn't help but feel angry. I know, it's terrible, but honestly. 3 years, and look at what he put his mother through. The first thing I asked him was why. And then Narcissa arrived, and it was terrible because she was crying, and I'd never seen her cry. Did Draco say anything? Harry demands. Draco had never spoken of his 3-year ordeal, and Harry had left it alone, but all this time, if all Harry had to do was ask. Astoria shakes her head. I don't know. I think he tried to say something a few times, but I was a bit angry, really, still trying to ask questions, and Narcissa was speaking over him. She kept telling him he had to come home, to the manor, and everything would be all right. And then? Narcissa and I got into an argument. Draco still looked terrible, and I said he should at least stay for another day. But Narcissa was insistent that he return to the manor and kept going on about quality of care. Astoria exhales sharply. Honestly, she can be so stubborn. And what? He just left. Harry says, stumbling over the words slightly. He repeats them again, his voice stronger. He just left. Astoria nods. While we were arguing, he went and changed into his clothes. As soon as he reappeared, Narcissa took him down to reception to sign out, just left me there, like I was a bit of furniture or something. Harry doesn't reply. He stares into the flames. He just left. Draco just left. Went back to the manor. Of course he went back to the manor. What did Harry expect? He thanks Astoria for talking to him, telling him everything that happened. She offers tea. He declines. When he flees back to the apartment, he sees the Renault Megane keycard sitting on the counter. Well, Draco has to come back for that at least. He takes the keycard and puts it in his bedside table drawer. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Harry tries to distract himself with his other cases. 2 weeks after Draco woke and returned to the manor, Harry closes his 9th case, the Staffordshire Witch. In just a few more weeks, his time with the investigative division will end. He goes home that night and finds Draco waiting outside his door. He looks like the old Draco Malfoy. He's wearing well-tailored clothes and a set of neat black robes. His hair is neatly combed, his cloak pinned with a small gold awl. All that's missing is the air of faint contempt. Harry tries to say something casual, something nonchalant, but his mouth dries up and all he can do is nod once at Draco as he fetches the keys from his pocket and unlocks the door. Malfoy, he says at last, and Draco looks at him. There's something in his gaze that is reminiscent of 6th year. A fragment of sadness hiding in the corner of his mouth, a trace of resignation in his eyes. Harry. Harry turns away quickly, making his way to the bedroom. When he returns, the keycard is in one hand. Draco looks at it, not moving. Your keycard, Harry says, holding it out. I know. They stand that way for a long time, neither moving. Then Draco takes the keycard and looks to the dining table, where his boxes of possessions are still neatly packed. He draws a wand, his mother's, Harry thinks, and waves it at the boxes. Reductio. The boxes shrink until they're pocket-sized. Harry watches as Draco picks them up and moves towards the door. Wait, Harry says, and Draco pauses. Harry reaches into his pocket and throws the wand to Draco. He catches it deftly, staring at it. There you go, Harry says, trying to make his voice sound light and casual. Couldn't give you a time-turner, but I gave you back your wand. Draco finally looks up, glancing at Harry before tapping his wand against the owl clasp on his cloak. It immediately curls in on itself, smaller and smaller, until it resembles a tiny marble. It fades to silver a moment later, and small wings form along it. A small silver snitch clasp. Leaving then? Harry asks, still trying to keep his voice light. Yes. Draco holds out a hand and Harry stares at it uncomprehendingly, wondering if he's supposed to shake Draco's hand and politely say goodbye. The thought makes him feel sick. After a long moment, Draco drops his hand. Then he turns and leaves, stepping out the door and closing it behind him. Harry listens to the quiet snick of the door, followed by fading footsteps. Harry stands in the middle of his empty apartment. The sun has nearly set now, eclipsing the apartment in cold shadows. He slowly, methodically pours a neat scotch and goes out to the balcony, listening. But nobody's whistling songs about southerly winds tonight, and the lights of the trains seem even more distant. Harry closes his eyes and leans over the railing of the balcony slightly, just to remind himself what it feels like to fly. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When he returns to his office the next day, he solves his 10th case. It's easy to do. He takes the file from his desk drawer and opens it up to the first page. Case number L10-332-5. Date filed, September 10th, 2003. Case classification, missing. Name, Malfoy, Draco. Other names, none. He turns the pages slowly. The photograph of Draco smiles up at him. He doesn't ever remember Draco smiling in the picture. He always looked so serious and solemn, but he smiles at Harry now, a faint but present smile. Harry turns the page, covering the photograph with a blank leaf of parchment. Then, he slowly taps his wand against the blank page. Case closed, he says, the words falling like weights. Words slowly appear across the parchment, echoing his statement, case closed. Beneath the words, more letters appear. Reason. Subject located. One more word appears on the parchment. Status. Alive. And with that, the file flutters shut like a bird settling its wings. He goes home that night and finally pours out the glass of water on the bedside table. Rinses out the glass, dries it, puts it away. Strips the bed and remakes it with fresh linen. It's like Draco was never there. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's the first day of summer when Harry receives his promotion to head Auror. Williamson is sitting there, looking pleased, with the 2 division heads nodding and smiling along on each side of her. Very pleased with your investigative work, Potter, Williamson is saying, but all he can think about is the way she says investigative work like it's a hobby, something to occupy spare time, something to use as a training exercise. But it's not. It's people's lives, lost family and friends, people desperate to know. 3 years, Astoria's voice whispers, and you never really stop looking. People trying to come home, because coming home can sometimes be the hardest journey they'll ever make. Can I keep working in the investigative division? Harry asks suddenly, and Williamson pauses mid-sentence to give him a startled look. Well, no. Your duties as head Auror will be demanding enough. You will be responsible for coordinating projects and if I stay where I am? Williamson exchanges a look with her colleagues. You can't stay where you are. You're head Auror. Not yet. Williamson says nothing for a long moment. This is a serious decision, best not rushed. Perhaps you should take a few days to consider our offer. I want to stay in the investigative division. Harry pauses. Maybe even apply for a transfer. Williamson coughs. Potter, I suggest you heed my recommendation and take a few days to think about it. Let's not make decisions we may regret later. No, Harry's tired of other people telling him what to do. Going only where others take you. I'm continuing my investigative work. And if that means refusing a promotion, that's fine. Look, you're one of our finest Aurors, the man to the right of Williamson says suddenly. You've got a stellar record. You've had a direct hand in catching at least half the Death Eaters. I caught the last one 3 years ago, Harry says sharply. Lucius Malfoy, who died in custody. That doesn't feel like a victory, strangely enough. The Auror division has certainly been downsized, now that the war is over. However, that doesn't mean your work is any less important, Williamson says firmly. Harry could almost smile if he wasn't so bitter about it. The last job I took before I worked in investigative, I spent a week, the entire week, serving as a glorified bodyguard for the minister. Standing about in a smart uniform, twiddling my thumbs. As head Auror, Williamson says, you could delegate those sorts of roles. Delegate? You're seriously offering delegation as a benefit of promotion? Wow, brilliant. I always base my decisions on how much potential power I'll have over others. Harry laughs. Williamson flinches, but recovers quickly. We'll reconvene at the end of the week, she says crisply. Potter, why don't you take the rest of the week off? Harry bites down a response and stands up. I'll see you Monday, he says, and they all nod and awkwardly farewell him. He takes the train home. The first day of summer is blossoming into a lazy afternoon. Couples stroll leisurely along Regent Street, gazing at window displays, and even the punishing crowds of Oxford Street seem less rushed than usual. He watches the trains. Always taking people away, always bringing people back. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. For days later, on the 5th of June, Draco comes home. A Sunday. Summer is early and settles like a warm cloak over the city, creating a long, sun-steeped afternoon. Harry stands on the balcony and watches the people wander past, children clutching ice lollies as parents stroll along beside them. The sun slowly begins to set, a clear bright dazzle of light on the blue horizon. A single cloud, wispy as a dandelion, slowly disintegrates across the sky. Harry goes inside, setting his empty glass on the counter. He takes the ice tray from the freezer, popping ice cubes into the glass and listening to the tink of glass against ice. Then he pours honey-colored rum over the ice, pausing when he hears a knock at the door. He sets the bottle down and crosses the room, half expecting a surprise visit from Ginny as he opens the door. Draco Malfoy stands there. Oh, Harry says. Draco looks at him. He looks like he did when they last met, all formal robes and impeccable appearance, and Harry's still waiting for that coolness, that raised eyebrow and faint sneer. But Draco walks straight in as if he owns the place, unclasps his cloak, and tosses it on the kitchen counter. And there's something reassuring about the way he does it, as if he's casting aside a mask that he wears for everyone else except Harry. Come for a drive? Draco says, as if it's a casual invitation, as if he turns up and asks this question all the time. Like it's a routine between them. All right, Harry says. There's some sort of restless energy about Draco. He paces to and fro, a hand trailing along the side of the counter, and Harry thinks he's like a seeker about to dart after a snitch. And he'll do anything to stop Draco from disappearing into that blue ether. Or at least, disappearing without Harry. They walk to the Renault together. Harry waits for Draco to choose the passenger or driver seat. To his surprise, Draco takes the passenger side and opens the glove box, retrieving the road atlas. Harry takes the driver's seat. Where are we going? He asks Draco. Draco smiles faintly, as if secretly amused by something. What? Harry says, frowning. Don't you keep your promises, Potter? Yes. Harry says it uncertainly, bewildered. Let's go to Dover, then. Harry looks away, unable to hide his smile. He starts the ignition. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It takes the best part an hour to leave London, but soon they're speeding along the M2. Draco speaks only to give directions, and Harry follows them wordlessly. They follow the lines of the land, curving along the wide highways and then breaking away to the smaller roads, the narrow and winding arteries that span the countryside and converge briefly upon a small parish before, once again, dividing and unraveling. They drive alongside a river for a long time. Harry asks for its name. The River Medway, Draco says, one hand resting lightly on the atlas. It joins with the Thames and, eventually, the North Sea. All rivers lead to the ocean. Harry can't remember where he heard that. They stop in Gillingham to purchase fuel. Draco, absorbed in navigating the next part of their journey, hands Harry a card. What's this? Harry asks blankly. Well, you see, Potter, there was this marvelous Muggle invention in the 1960s called a bank card. I know what it is, Harry says, rolling his eyes. It's just, why have you got one? Muggle shops don't tend to accept galleons, Draco says with a shrug. Easiest way to buy petrol. Wonders, Harry thinks, will never cease. They continue on, driving into the endless night. The clouds come rolling in over the sky, shrouding the moon, and it begins to lightly rain around midnight. It's almost mesmerizing. Harry stares at the silver rain, illuminated by the headlights, and thinks he can see 1,000 different patterns. Draco is silent, and a few times, Harry thinks he's fallen asleep. Whenever he glances over, however, he sees the light reflected in Draco's eyes as he gazes ahead. They take quite a meandering route to Dover, leaving the M2 to weave around the coastline, and the relatively short trip soon becomes a lengthy journey. They reach Margate at midnight. Dover is still about an hour away, Harry calculates. He's beginning to feel tired. Draco seems to notice, for he tells Harry to pull over and they switch seats. Harry doesn't remember falling asleep, but when he wakes up the lights of Margate have long disappeared. Inky black fields surround them, and there's not another car in sight. Where are we? He mutters groggily. Nowhere. Go back to sleep. He does. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. They arrive in Dover at 1 o'clock in the morning. Harry wakes up when the engine stops. They're parked at a lighthouse, he realizes. The only car in the windswept parking lot. Draco opens his door. Harry does the same. They step onto the ground at the exact same time, gravel crunching against their shoes, and the wind rushes through Harry's hair like a crashing wave. Harry smiles and shuts the passenger's door. A second later, there's an echoing slam as Draco closes the driver's door. They set off across the car park, past the lighthouse. Its curved wall gleams white in the moonlight, but it quickly recedes into the distance as they walk onwards, until the earth is soft and green beneath their feet and the white cliffs are rising from the darkness like pale ghosts. Harry sits on the edge of a craggy rock, listening to the waves roll in and looking at Draco. He stands with his back to Harry, gazing out into the sea. The moon, shrouded in cloud, affords little illumination. She sold it, Draco says. Sold what? Harry asks. There's a long silence. Sold my home, Draco says, and his voice cracks on the last word, and Harry realizes the long silence was because Draco was trying to compose himself. Sold my home. Draco's East Devon house, Harry realizes with a sudden heartache. Narcissa sold it. And all the furniture had been sold as well. Draco's possessions, 4 tidy little boxes, sitting in the manor for years, were all that remained. Another long silence before Draco speaks again, still not turning to look at Harry. She said I could stay at the manor as long as I liked, of course. His voice, so level until now, suddenly lifts with suppressed anger. I left once, isn't that enough? Merlin, I can't stand it there. I can't stand her clinging to me. Draco breaks off abruptly and, at last, turns to look at Harry. Astoria is worse, demanding explanations. She wants answers I don't have. My mother wants reassurances I can't give. Everybody wants something, but I've got nothing left to give. Harry is silent. The thin light of the moon does little to show Draco's expression. Harry looks away instead, tilting his head to listen to the rush of waves eddying around the base of the cliffs. He knows that feeling well. The empathy runs through his veins, threading its way beneath his skin. People wanting something, everything. Throughout the war, that feeling followed him like a distant dementor, hovering over his thoughts and clouding his days with self-doubt and misery. The worst part was knowing they didn't want the real Harry. They wanted a charade, a false and brittle brightness. A normal person, a confident person who knew exactly what to do. Tell us, their unspoken plea said. Tell us you're perfectly all right. You know, Harry says, I have no idea what I'm doing. Draco stares at him. Potter, he says eventually, that's not exactly reassuring. It's not supposed to be. I have no idea what I'm doing. You have no idea what you're doing either. Harry shrugs. Doesn't matter. Draco considers that. I don't have any plans, he says. All right. I don't know where I'm going. Took us to Dover, didn't you? And tomorrow, you'll take us somewhere else. Anywhere, nowhere, wherever. Draco falls silent. They stay where they are for a long time, until dawn begins to faintly tinge the sky.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!